The training hall stretched 300 meters in every direction, its metallic walls reflecting the pale blue lights of Station Krell 7. Una Park stood at the edge of the combat arena, watching her squadmates tear through the simulation with ease. Her muscles ached from the previous round, and her lungs burned with each breath she took through the thin atmospheric mix that every other species found comfortable. She was the smallest person in the room. At 5'4" and barely 60 kilograms, she looked like a child next to the other cadets. Vorath, the Kryn warrior in her squad, stood nearly 3 meters tall with 4 arms and skin that could deflect small arms fire. Tessic, the Chilix tactician, had an exoskeleton harder than most armor plating and reaction times 3 times faster than any human. Even the weak species in the academy could crush her without thinking. The instructor, a massive Drexian named Velkon, called her name through the speakers. Una stepped onto the arena floor, feeling every eye in the room follow her movement. The simulation loaded around her, projecting holographic enemies and obstacles. She had 60 seconds to eliminate 10 targets while navigating through a field designed for beings twice her size and strength. The buzzer sounded. Una ran forward, her boots pounding against the metal floor. The first obstacle was a wall 4 meters high, easy for species with natural climbing abilities or powerful legs. She grabbed the handholds and pulled herself up, her arms screaming in protest. By the time she reached the top, precious seconds had ticked away. She dropped down the other side and raised her training rifle. The first target appeared, moving fast across her field of vision. She fired and missed. The recoil of the weapon, calibrated for stronger species, nearly knocked her backwards. She adjusted her stance and fired again. This time the shot connected and the target dissolved. Behind her she heard laughter. Not quiet snickering, but open, mocking laughter that echoed through the hall. Her face burned hot, but she kept moving. 9 more targets. 50 seconds left. Una pushed herself harder than she thought possible. She climbed, she ran, she fired until her hands trembled and her vision blurred. When the buzzer sounded to end the simulation, she had eliminated 6 targets. Out of 10. The worst score of the day, again. She walked off the arena floor with her head down. Vorath stood near the exit, his forearms crossed over his massive chest. As she passed, he spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Why do humans even try? You cannot fight. You cannot climb. You break like dry twigs. His voice rumbled like falling rocks. Perhaps your species should stay home and let real warriors handle the galaxy. Several cadets laughed. Others simply looked away, embarrassed for her. Tessic clicked his mandibles in what passed for Chilix amusement. Una said nothing. What could she say? He was right. Every metric proved it. She was the weakest cadet in the academy. In 3 months of training, she had not placed higher than last in any physical assessment. The instructors had started giving her modified assignments, easier tasks that would not embarrass her as much. That somehow made it worse. She retreated to the locker room and changed out of her training uniform. Her body was covered in bruises, some old and yellow, some fresh and purple. The standard academy equipment was not made for human frames. The armor pinched, the weapons were too heavy. Even the chairs in the classroom made her back ache after long lectures. That evening, Una sat alone in the station's observation deck. Through the massive windows, she could see the stars scattered across the black void of space. Earth was out there somewhere, 60 light-years away. She wondered if coming here had been a mistake. You looked like someone killed your favorite pet. Una turned to see Jiho Kang walking toward her with 2 cups of something hot. He was a maintenance technician on the station, one of the few other humans on Krell 7. He had arrived 3 years ago and worked in the engineering section, keeping the station's systems running. Just another perfect day at the academy, Una said, taking the cup he offered. The liquid inside smelled like coffee, or at least a close approximation. Jiho sat down beside her. He was older than her by about 5 years, with perpetually oil-stained hands and an easy smile that made her feel less alone. Let me guess. Vorath gave you trouble again? Vorath, Tessic, the instructors. Take your pick. Una sipped the hot drink and grimaced. Definitely not real coffee. I don't know why I thought I could do this. Every other species here is stronger, faster, tougher. Humans have no business being soldiers. Jiho was quiet for a moment, staring out at the stars. You ever hear the rumors about why there are so few humans in the military? Because we're terrible at it? No, Jiho's voice dropped lower. Because the coalition is afraid of us. Una almost laughed, But something in his tone stopped her. Afraid of humans. Have you seen me in the combat simulations? I'm serious. Jiho looked around to make sure they were alone. I work with technicians from a dozen different species. Sometimes they drink too much and they talk. Senior officers, old veterans. They say things about Earth, about our history, about why humanity's military records are classified at levels higher than most species' nuclear codes. That's ridiculous, Yuna said, but she felt a strange chill run down her spine. Maybe, Jiho shrugged, but in 3 years here I've noticed something. Whenever humans are mentioned in military contexts, people get quiet, not dismissive. Quiet, like they're afraid to say the wrong thing. Yuna wanted to believe him, wanted to think there was some reason beyond her own inadequacy for why she struggled so much. But the bruises on her body and the humiliation of the day's training session told her the truth. Humans were weak. That was just reality. Proving day is in 2 weeks, she said, changing the subject. Every cadet has to stand in front of the entire academy, while the bioscanner displays their species' military record. I'm already dreading it. Jiho winced sympathetically. What do you think it will show? Probably nothing. A few minor conflicts, maybe some defensive wars. Nothing impressive. Yuna finished her drink and stood up. I should get some rest. Tomorrow we have zero-gravity combat training. I'll probably break something. Hey. Jiho stood as well and put a hand on her shoulder. You're tougher than you think. Just keep your head up. Yuna managed a weak smile and headed back to the cadet barracks. The halls of Station Krell 7 were massive and cold, built for beings much larger than her. She felt like an insect crawling through a giant's home. In the barracks, she found her bunk and collapsed onto it. Around her, other cadets were laughing and sharing stories of their victories in the day's training. No one spoke to her. She had become invisible, the failure that no one wanted to acknowledge. As she lay there in the dim light, Yuna thought about Jiho's words. Classified military records, fear. It seemed impossible, but a small part of her, the part that refused to give up despite everything, wondered if there might be some truth to it. 2 weeks until Proving Day. 2 weeks until everyone would see exactly what humanity had accomplished in war. Yuna closed her eyes and tried not to think about the humiliation that awaited her. She had no idea that in 14 days, everything she thought she knew about her species would shatter like glass. The scanner would reveal a truth that had been hidden from her, from Earth, from nearly everyone. And the cadets who mocked her would learn why humanity had been kept away from the battlefield. But tonight she was just a tired young woman who hurt everywhere and wanted to go home. Proving Day arrived with all the ceremony and pageantry that the Galactic Military Academy could muster. The Grand Assembly Hall had been decorated with the flags of 300 different species, each one representing the cadets who trained on Station Krell 7. Thousands of beings filled the tiered seating, from instructors to visiting dignitaries to cadets themselves, all gathered to witness the traditional display of military heritage. Yuna sat in the human section, which consisted of exactly 1 seat. She wore her dress uniform, the dark blue fabric pressed and perfect, though it hung a bit loose on her small frame. Her hands were folded in her lap, and her stomach felt like it was trying to eat itself from the inside. The ceremony began with Headmaster Velkon taking the stage. His massive Drexian form commanded attention, his scales gleaming under the bright lights. He spoke about honor, about tradition, about the proud warrior cultures that made up the coalition. His words boomed through the hall, translated simultaneously into hundreds of languages. Then the presentations began. One by one, cadets from each species approached the bioscanner platform at the center of the hall. The device would read their genetic signature and display their species' military history for all to see. The Kryn were first. Vorath himself stepped onto the platform, his forearms raised in salute. The scanner hummed to life and holographic displays filled the air above him. Images of conquered worlds, victorious fleet battles, enemies crushed beneath Kryn might. The statistics scrolled past. 17 star systems brought under Kryn control, 300 years of unbroken military expansion, casualty ratios that favored Kryn warriors 10-1. The hall erupted in applause. Vorath stepped down with his head held high, basking in the recognition. Next came the Chilix. Tessik approached the platform with precise, measured steps. The scanner revealed their hive mind tactical achievements. Coordinated fleet movements of impossible complexity, defensive victories against superior forces, Infiltration operations that had turned the tide of entire wars. More applause, more pride. Species after species took their turn. The peaceful alluvians showed their centuries of successful planetary defense. The aquatic morphics displayed their mastery of underwater and zero-gravity combat. Even the smallest species had moments of glory to share. Battles won through cunning or courage or sacrifice. With each presentation, Una sank deeper into her seat. She watched the other cadets celebrate their heritages, saw the respect in the eyes of the instructors, felt the weight of tradition pressing down on the hall. What would the scanner show for humanity? She tried to remember Earth's history. There had been wars, certainly. World War I, World War II, countless smaller conflicts, but nothing on a galactic scale. Nothing that would impress this audience. Finally, Velkan called her name. Cadet Una Park, representing humanity. The hall fell into a different kind of silence. Not the respectful quiet that had preceded other presentations, but something else. Whispers, snickering. She heard someone near the back say something that made others laugh. Una stood on shaking legs and walked down the long aisle toward the platform. The distance seemed to stretch forever. She could feel every eye on her, could sense the pity and amusement radiating from the crowd. Varath said something to the cadets near him, and a fresh wave of laughter rippled through the section. She climbed the 3 steps to the platform and stood in the center of the scanner ring. The device hummed as it activated, reading her genetic markers, accessing the Coalition database for Earth's military records. The display screen flickered to life above her head. Una kept her eyes forward, refusing to look up, refusing to see the disappointing history that would confirm what everyone already believed about humans. Then something went wrong. The scanner's normal blue light shifted to amber. A warning tone sounded soft at first, then growing louder. The amber light deepened to orange, then to a dark, angry red. The humming became a wail. All around the hall, secondary systems began to activate, security protocols engaging automatically. Una looked up in confusion. The display screen showed nothing but static. Error messages began to appear in multiple languages. Access restricted. Classified material. Authorization required. Velkan stood from his seat, his face showing an expression Una had never seen before. Not anger, fear. The scanner continued to scream. The red light bathed the entire hall in a bloody glow. Then all at once, every screen in the facility activated. The main display, the side monitors, even the personal data pads carried by instructors, all showed the same message simultaneously. The text appeared in every known language, scrolling across screens in characters that ranged from human letters to Chilix glyphs to Kryn symbols. Human military record, classification level, extinction event. Below it, more text appeared. Worlds destroyed, 7 species eradicated, 3 soldiers deployed, irrelevant. The hall exploded into chaos. Cadets jumped from their seats. Instructors shouted orders that no one followed. The scanner continued to wail its alarm, and the red light pulsed like a heartbeat. Una stood frozen on the platform, unable to process what she was seeing. Worlds destroyed? Species eradicated? It had to be a mistake. Some kind of malfunction. Humans did not destroy worlds. Humans could barely handle academy training simulations. Shut it down. Velkan's voice boomed over the chaos. Shut down the scanner immediately. Technicians rushed to the controls, but the scanner refused to respond. More information began to appear on the screens. Fragmentary data that flashed too quickly to read fully. Rathi homeworld. Total extinction via kinetic bombardment Corvin. Species 99.7%. Mortality. Biological warfare Kepler 442. Incident. 14 billion casualties scorched planet. Protocol. Active category existential threat. Una's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the platform, her mind unable to connect the words on the screen with anything she knew about Earth. This could not be real. This could not be humanity. Security personnel surrounded the platform. Velkan himself pushed through the crowd, his massive form moving with surprising speed. He reached Una and pulled her to her feet, his grip firm but not painful. Come with me, he said, his voice low and urgent. Right now. He practically dragged her off the platform and toward a side exit. Behind them, the hall continued to descend into chaos. She caught glimpses of faces as they passed, cadets staring at her with wide eyes, instructors speaking frantically into communication devices, Vorath standing completely still with all 4 of his arms hanging limp at his sides. Velkan pulled her through the exit and down a corridor, moving so fast that Yuna had to run to keep up. They passed through security checkpoints that opened automatically for the headmaster, descended in an elevator that dropped so quickly her stomach lurched, and finally entered a small, windowless office deep in the station's command section. The door closed behind them with a heavy thunk. Velkan released her arm and moved to his desk, his hands trembling as he activated a secure terminal. The screens flickered to life, showing data that Yuna could not read from where she stood. "Sit down," Velkan said, not looking at her. Yuna sat. Her whole body felt numb. What just happened? Is it a malfunction? The scanner must be broken, right? Those numbers cannot be real. Velkan turned to face her, and the expression on his reptilian features made her blood run cold. It was not anger. It was not disappointment. It was raw, primal fear. "The scanner is working perfectly," he said quietly. "Those numbers are real, Cadet Park, every single one of them." Yuna shook her head. "That's impossible. Earth doesn't destroy worlds. We don't eradicate species. We're not even good at war. You've seen me train. Humans are weak." "You are weak," Velkan agreed, and somehow that was worse than mockery. "Individually, humans are among the most fragile species in the Coalition. But as a species," he turned back to his screens, "you are the most terrifying thing in the known galaxy." He pressed a button and the screens filled with classified files, each one marked with security clearances that Yuna had never seen before. "What I am about to show you is known to only a handful of beings in the entire Coalition. The truth about humanity's admission to our alliance. The truth about why we begged Earth to send us scientists, engineers, diplomats, anyone except soldiers." Yuna stared at the screens, at the files with Earth's symbol blazing in red, at the words extinction-level threat stamped across humanity's military profile. "This cannot be real," she whispered. Velkan looked at her with something that might have been pity. "I am going to show you exactly what your species is capable of, Cadet Park. And when I am done, you will understand why the entire galaxy is terrified of the day humans decide to actually fight." Velkan stood before his terminal for a long moment, his clawed fingers hovering over the controls. The office was silent except for the soft hum of the station's ventilation system. Yuna sat in her chair, her mind still reeling from what she had seen in the assembly hall. Nothing made sense. The words on those screens could not be real. "Before I show you this," Velkan said slowly, "you need to understand something. What I'm about to reveal is classified at the highest levels of the Coalition. Most species know nothing about this. Even on Earth, the vast majority of your population has no idea what their government has done. This information could start wars. It could tear the Coalition apart. Do you understand?" Yuna nodded, though she was not sure she understood anything anymore. Velkan touched the screen and the first file opened. A star system appeared in holographic display above his desk, rendered in perfect detail. 3 planets orbited a yellow star. The outermost planet was marked in red. "This is the Rathi home system," Velkan began. 83 years ago, the Rathi were an expanding empire, aggressive, militaristic, but not unusually so by galactic standards. They discovered a human colony on a planet called Kepler 442b. This colony was small, barely 40,000 people, established only 15 years earlier. The hologram shifted, showing a green and blue planet. Yuna could see cities dotting the surface, farmland spreading in geometric patterns. "The Rathi invaded," Velkan continued, his voice flat and professional, though Yuna could hear the strain beneath it. "They wanted the planet for its resources. They killed 12,000 colonists in the initial attack. The remaining 28,000 were taken as slaves." Yuna felt sick. She had never heard of this. Earth's history courses had never mentioned a colony being enslaved. Earth's government received word of the attack 3 months later, due to the distance and communication lag. The Coalition offered to mediate, to negotiate for the release of the hostages. The Rathi refused. They said the humans were their property now, claimed by right of conquest. Velkan touched the screen again. The hologram changed, showing Earth, then showing massive construction facilities in orbit, factories churning out something Yuna could not quite make out. Earth's response was not military in the traditional sense. They did not send warships. They did not deploy troops. Instead, they calculated the orbital trajectories of every significant asteroid in their solar system. Then, they began to move them. The hologram showed asteroids, hundreds of them, being captured by ships and fitted with massive engines. Una watched as the rocks began to accelerate, building speed over months of constant thrust. It took Earth 2 years to prepare, Velkan said quietly. 2 years of calculation, construction, and planning. The Rathi thought they had won. They ignored repeated warnings from Earth. They even killed 5,000 more hostages when Earth demanded their return. The hologram shifted back to the Rathi system. Una watched as the asteroids, now moving at horrifying speeds, entered the system from dozens of different angles. What happened next took 72 hours, Velkan said. Earth had accelerated those asteroids to relativistic speeds. When they struck, each one hit with the force of hundreds of nuclear weapons. The Rathi homeworld died first. 73 impact sites. The crust fractured. The atmosphere burned away. 14 billion Rathi died in the first day. Una could not breathe. She stared at the hologram as it showed the planet breaking apart, massive chunks of crust spinning away into space. The Rathi fleet tried to evacuate the other 2 planets in the system. Velkan continued. But Earth had calculated for that too. More asteroids struck the mining colonies on the 2nd planet, the research stations on the 3rd planet. When it was over, the entire Rathi species was reduced to less than 1 million refugees scattered across a dozen worlds. Their civilization was gone. Their homeworld was an asteroid belt. The hologram faded. Velkan opened another file. That could have been the end of it, he said. A terrible tragedy, a response born of grief and rage. The coalition could have accepted it as an aberration, but then came the Corvin incident. A new star system appeared. This one showed a massive gas giant with 3 moons, each one covered in cities and industrial complexes. The Corvins were an insectoid species, about 9 billion strong. They controlled 13 systems and were known for piracy and raiding. They began attacking human merchant ships, stealing cargo, killing crews. Earth sent diplomatic missions. The Corvins ignored them. Earth imposed trade sanctions. The Corvins laughed. Velkan's voice grew quieter. So Earth created a virus. Una felt her blood turn to ice. It took their scientists 8 months, Velkan said. A biological weapon specifically tailored to Corvin physiology. It was transmitted through their communication networks, hidden in data packets. Every ship, every station, every city received it before anyone knew what was happening. The hologram showed the spread pattern, a web of infection moving through the Corvin territories like wildfire. The virus was extraordinarily specific. It affected only Corvins, no other species. It had a 99.7% mortality rate. Symptoms appeared within hours. Death followed within days. There was no cure, no treatment. The Corvins had superior medical technology compared to Earth, and it made no difference. Una watched the numbers tick down on the display. 9 billion, became 5 billion, became 1 billion, became millions. In 8 months, the Corvin civilization collapsed. Less than 30 million survived, and most of those were individuals with rare genetic variations that made them immune. Earth released the cure exactly 1 day after the last Corvin pirate attack was reported. Not before. They waited until the threat was completely neutralized. Velkan closed that file and opened 5 more. Each one showed a different world, each one marked with red indicators. These are the other 5 worlds on humanity's record. I will not go into detail about each one, but the pattern is always the same. Humanity does not fight wars the way other species do. They do not seek honorable combat. They do not care about military glory. When humanity decides that something is a threat, they remove that threat completely, permanently, and with overwhelming force. He pulled up a document written in formal coalition script. This is the treaty that allowed Earth to join our alliance. Article 7, Section 3. Earth agrees to suppress all records of military actions taken prior to first contact. Article 7, Section 5. Earth agrees to restrict human participation in military roles within the coalition. Article 7, Section 9. Earth will provide scientists, engineers, and diplomats to strengthen the coalition's peaceful development. Yuna found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. Why would Earth agree to that? Because they were horrified by what they had done, Velkan said simply. After the Corvin incident, Earth's government realized what they had become. They had developed the capacity to commit genocide with terrifying efficiency. They had proven themselves willing to use that capacity, so when the coalition made contact and offered membership, Earth accepted on the condition that their military history would be sealed. They wanted to become something better. He turned to face her fully. Your generation knows nothing about this. Earth's population believes the colonies that were lost simply failed, died to natural disasters or accidents. The Rathi and Corvins are footnotes in your history books, mentioned only as extinct species that humanity had brief contact with. The truth is locked away by your government and ours. Yuna tried to process this information, but her mind kept rejecting it. But I'm terrible at combat. Every human at the Academy is weaker than the other species. If we're so dangerous, why? Because individual combat capability is irrelevant, Velkan interrupted. A single Kryn warrior could defeat 10 humans in hand-to-hand combat. But that means nothing when humans can drop asteroids from orbit or engineer viruses that erase entire species. Your weakness in physical combat is precisely why you developed such terrifying alternatives. He pulled up one more file, and Yuna saw her own face on the screen alongside millions of other human profiles. This is why we limit human roles in the military, Velkan said. Not because you cannot fight, but because we are terrified of what happens when you do. The Coalition has fought wars for thousands of years. We understand battle. We understand conquest. But what humanity practices is not war. It is extinction. And that makes your species the most dangerous thing in the known galaxy. Yuna sat in stunned silence. Everything she thought she knew about herself, about her people, about Earth's place in the galaxy had been a lie. Or not a lie, but an incomplete truth, carefully edited to hide something monstrous. Why are you telling me this? She finally asked. Velkan's expression darkened. Because the galaxy is about to learn it anyway. There is a new threat on the Coalition's borders. A species called the Drevok Horde. They have already destroyed 3 of our outpost worlds. They are massing for a full invasion. The Coalition Council is debating whether to invoke Article 7, Section 12 of Earth's treaty. What does that section say? It is called the Emergency Warfare Provision, Velkan said quietly. In the event of an existential threat to the Coalition, Earth is permitted to deploy its full military capability without restriction. The Council is considering asking humanity to do what you do best. He looked at her with haunted eyes. They are considering asking your species to make the Drevok extinct. The next morning, Yuna walked through the Academy halls and everything had changed. Not the station itself, which looked exactly the same as always, but the way people looked at her. Where before she had been invisible or pitied, now cadets stopped talking when she approached. They stepped aside to let her pass. Some watched her with fear in their eyes, others with desperate hope. Word had spread overnight. The scanner incident could not be contained, not with 300 species worth of cadets witnessing it. By breakfast, everyone on Station Krell 7 knew that humanity's military record was classified at extinction-level threat status. Rumors multiplied faster than anyone could track them. Some said humans had destroyed 100 worlds. Others claimed Earth had weapons that could crack planets like eggs. Yuna found Jiho in the maintenance section, working on a power relay. He looked up when she entered, set down his tools, and just stared at her for a moment. So it was all true, he said quietly. What I heard. The rumors. All of it, you knew? Yuna felt a flash of anger. You knew and you didn't tell me? I knew there was something. I didn't know what. Jiho wiped his hands on a rag. I'm just a maintenance tech, Yuna. They don't share classified files with people like me. But yeah, I knew something was being hidden. Everyone who works around the senior staff knows. You just don't talk about it. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. But I need to tell you something else. I wasn't completely honest about my position here. I do maintenance work, yes. But I also report to Earth's intelligence network. There are about 40 of us on this station, watching, listening, making sure the Coalition doesn't break the treaty. Yuna's head spun. You're a spy? Intelligence officer sounds better. Jiho managed a weak smile. And before you ask, yes, Earth knows about the Drevok threat. Ships are being prepared. Battle plans are being drawn up. But our government is terrified. They don't want to go back to what we were. They don't want to become the monsters again. Are we monsters? Yuna asked. If what Velkan showed me is true, if we really did those things, we defended ourselves, Jiho said firmly. The Rathi enslaved our people. The Corvins killed our civilians. Earth responded to aggression, not started it, by erasing entire species from existence. Yes. Jiho did not look away. What would you have had them do? Send soldiers to die in conventional warfare? Let those civilizations continue attacking us. Sometimes there are no good choices, Yuna. Only terrible ones and worse ones. Before Yuna could respond, her communication device buzzed. A message from Velkan. Report to Command Briefing Room 7 immediately. She found the briefing room filled with people she did not expect. Velkan stood at the head of the table along with 3 other senior instructors. To her shock, Vorath was there and Tessik, both looking uncomfortable in the formal setting. And sitting in the corner, pretending to check a data pad but clearly part of the meeting, was Jiho. Velkan gestured for her to sit. Cadet Park, thank you for coming. I will be direct because we do not have time for formalities. The Coalition Council has decided not to invoke the emergency warfare provision. Not yet. They are terrified of unleashing humanity, and they hope to resolve the Drevok threat through conventional military means. But you disagree, Yuna said, reading his expression. I have seen the intelligence reports. The Drevok number in the billions. Their fleet is larger than anything the Coalition has faced in 3 centuries. If we fight them conventionally, we will lose. Velkan pulled up a star map. However, there may be another option. Not war, but information. He highlighted a section of space near the border. We need intelligence on the Drevok. Their numbers, their capabilities, their intentions. More importantly, we need to understand if they know about humanity's true military history. If they do not, that ignorance might be leveraged into a deterrent. Tessik clicked his mandibles nervously. You want to threaten them. Make them believe humans will destroy their civilization if they attack. I want to give them the truth, Velkan corrected, and let them make an informed decision about whether war with the Coalition is worth the risk. Vorath spoke up, his deep voice uncertain in a way Yuna had never heard before. Why am I here? I am a warrior, not a spy. Because this mission requires a mixed team, Velkan said. Humans to understand Earth's military philosophy and communicate the threat credibly. But also Coalition species to legitimize the mission and navigate Drevok territory without immediate suspicion. He looked at Yuna. Cadet Park, I am offering you a chance to lead this mission. It will be dangerous. You may not return. But if you succeed, you might prevent a war that would cost billions of lives on both sides. Yuna's mouth went dry. Why me? I'm the worst cadet in the academy. I failed every combat assessment. Exactly, Velkan said. You represent what the galaxy thinks humans are. Weak, unsuited for warfare, no threat at all. That makes you the perfect messenger. When someone like you delivers the truth about humanity's capabilities, it carries more weight than if we sent a hardened soldier. Jiho stood up. I volunteer to join the mission. Yuna will need someone who understands the intelligence work. Already approved, Velkan said. You will go as her technical specialist. I am also assigning 2 more humans from our covert intelligence network. He gestured to the door and 2 people entered. The first was a woman about Yuna's age with sharp eyes and calloused fingers. Dane Lee, pilot. Best in the human fleet, or so I'm told. He spoke with casual confidence that bordered on arrogance. The second was quieter, a young woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Mira Choi, systems specialist. I can hack pretty much anything that runs on code. Velkan continued. Vorath and Tessik have volunteered to represent the Coalition interests on this mission. They understand the risk. Vorath looked at Yuna directly. I mocked you. I was wrong. If there is a chance to prevent war, I will take it. Even if it means working with, he hesitated, then finished, with the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The words stung, but Yuna understood. Everything had changed. She was no longer the weakest link. She was now something that frightened a warrior who could tear apart armored vehicles with his bare hands. Over the next week, the team trained together in ways Yuna had never experienced. Not physical combat, but infiltration techniques, intelligence gathering, communication protocols. Mira taught them how to slice into foreign networks without being detected. Jiho showed them how to analyze military installations from sensor data. Dane ran flight simulations until they could navigate hostile territory with their eyes closed. But the most difficult part was teaching the non-humans about Earth's military philosophy. Yuna had to explain concepts that still made her sick to think about. Humans do not think about winning battles, she explained during one session, reading from classified Earth military doctrine that Jiho had provided. We think about ending threats permanently. If something is dangerous enough to fight, it is dangerous enough to erase. Tessik's translator struggled with the concept. But that is genocide. That is the most serious crime in galactic law. It is, Yuna agreed. And that is why Earth agreed to suppress its military history. We became something we were ashamed of. But the capability still exists. The knowledge still exists. And if the Drevok push hard enough, Earth will use it again. Vorath was silent for a long time. Finally he asked, "Do you believe your people would really destroy the Drevok? All of them?" Yuna thought about the files Velkan had shown her. The Rothi homeworld cracked like an egg. The Corvin species reduced to scattered survivors. 7 dead worlds marked on humanity's record. "Yes," she said quietly. "If they threaten Earth or the Coalition badly enough, yes. My people will make the Drevok extinct. And they will do it efficiently, quickly, and without mercy." The room fell silent. The reality of what they were planning settled over the team like a heavy blanket. They were not going to fight the Drevok. They were going to terrify them into surrender. On the last day before departure, Yuna recorded a message for her family on Earth. She sat in the small recording booth and tried to find words that would not worry them. "Hi Mom, hi Dad, I'm doing fine at the academy. I've been selected for a special assignment, intelligence work, nothing dangerous." The lie tasted bitter. "I just wanted you to know I love you. And I'm proud to be human, even though we're not perfect. Especially because we're not perfect." She paused, thinking about all the things she could not say, could not tell them about the Rothi, could not explain the Corvins, could not describe the fear in Vorath's eyes when he looked at her now. "I'll be back soon. Take care of each other." The message sent, Yuna joined her team at the docking bay. Their ship was small and fast, designed for stealth rather than combat. Dane ran through pre-flight checks while Mira loaded their equipment. Jiho secured their supplies. Vorath and Tessik stood together, speaking quietly in their own languages. Velkan came to see them off. He pulled Yuna aside one last time. "Remember," he said, "you are not there to fight. You are there to deliver a message. Show them the truth. Let them understand what they are facing, and pray to whatever gods you believe in that it is enough to stop this war before it starts." "And if it's not enough?" Yuna asked. Velkan's expression was grim. "Then Earth will do what Earth does, and another species will learn why humanity is the most terrifying thing in the galaxy." The team boarded the ship. The airlock sealed, and as they undocked from Station Krell 7, Yuna looked back at the academy one last time, wondering if she would ever see it again. The journey to Drevok space took 18 days. They traveled through the outer edges of Coalition territory, past the burned-out husks of the 3 outpost worlds that the Drevok had already destroyed. Yuna watched through the viewport as they passed the remains of Station Keller 3, its massive structure torn apart and drifting in pieces through the dark. 12,000 people worked there, Tessik said quietly, standing beside her. Scientists, families, children. The Drevok gave no warning. They simply opened fire and kept firing until nothing lived. Yuna felt the weight of those words. 12,000 people. Not so different from the human colonists on Kepler 442b all those years ago. She understood now, in a way she had not before, why Earth had responded with such terrible force. When you watched the people you cared about die, when you saw entire communities erased, something changed inside you. They crossed into Drevok territory on day 19. Dane piloted the ship with his usual cocky confidence, using every trick he knew to avoid detection. They flew dark, with minimal power signatures sliding between asteroid fields and nebula clouds. Twice they detected Drevok patrol ships and had to hide for hours, barely breathing. While the enemy passed close enough to see, Mira worked constantly at her console, intercepting Drevok communications and cracking their encryption. The enemy used sophisticated codes, but she was better. After 6 days in their territory, she had mapped their entire communication network. "I'm in," she announced one morning, not looking up from her screens. "I have access to their military database. Give me a few hours and I can pull everything they know about the Coalition." Those few hours turned into a full day of intensive work. Yuna watched Mira's fingers fly across the controls, watched her frown deepen as she read what she found. Finally, Mira leaned back and rubbed her eyes. "You need to see this," she said. The team gathered around her console. Mira pulled up file after file, each one showing detailed analysis of Coalition species' military capabilities. The Drivok had done their homework. They knew the size of the Kryn fleet, the defensive capabilities of Chillik stations, the tactical doctrine of every major species. "They have been planning this invasion for years," Mira said. "They have war-gamed every scenario. Fleet movements, casualty projections, resource allocation. According to their analysis, they can defeat the Coalition with acceptable losses. They are confident of victory." "What about humans?" Jiho asked. "What do they know about Earth?" Mira pulled up another file and Yuna's heart sank. The human entry was barely half a page. It listed Earth's location, noted the presence of human scientists and engineers throughout Coalition space, and had a brief note about human physical weakness compared to other species. Under military capability, there was a single line: insufficient data. No significant military force detected. Threat level, minimal. "They don't know," Vorath rumbled. "They have no idea what humans can do." "That's our opening," Yuna said, her mind racing. Velkon was right. If they knew the truth, they might reconsider. "We need to show them." "Show them what?" Tessic asked. "We cannot declassify Earth's military records. That would violate the treaty." "We don't need to officially declassify anything," Jiho said slowly, catching on to Yuna's thinking. "We just need to make sure the information reaches the right people." "An intelligence leak. Completely unofficial," Dane grinned. "I like it. But how do we deliver it? We can't just send them a file and hope they read it." Mira was already working. Their command network has a central hub. If I can access it, I can inject data directly into their military intelligence system. Make it look like their own scouts discovered it. But I will need to be close. "Really close? How close?" Yuna asked. "Inside their main fleet staging area. Maybe 200 kilometers. The team went silent. The Drevok staging area was the heart of their military operation, surrounded by hundreds of warships and thousands of defensive platforms. Getting that close would be suicide. "I can do it," Dane said. "Get us in, I mean. Getting out again might be harder." They spent 2 days planning. Mira prepared the data package, pulling everything from Earth's classified files that Jiho could access. The Rathi incident, the Corvin genocide, the 7 dead worlds, technical analysis of kinetic bombardment, biological warfare protocols, everything that made humanity the most terrifying species in the galaxy. But Yuna insisted on one addition. "We need to record a message. Not from Earth's government. From me. Personal. Direct. I want them to hear it from someone who was in the academy. Someone they would dismiss as weak." She sat in front of a camera and spoke for 20 minutes. She talked about being mocked, about failing combat training, about being the smallest and weakest cadet. Then she talked about what she learned, about the colonists enslaved by the Rathi, about Earth's response, about the philosophical difference between how humans fought and how everyone else fought. "You see me as weak," she said into the camera, her voice steady. "And you are right, I am weak. But I am not human military. I am what happens when Earth tries to be peaceful, when we try to fit in with the galactic community, when we suppress what we are capable of." She paused, letting that sink in. "But if you continue this war, if you push the Coalition to the point where they invoke the emergency warfare provision, you will not face people like me. You will face the humans who destroyed 7 worlds. And they will not fight you. They will erase you, completely, permanently, without hesitation." She leaned closer to the camera. "You have detailed files on every Coalition species. You have calculated how to defeat them. But you have no data on what humans do when we stop trying to be civilized. Let me give you that data. Study it carefully. Then ask yourself if your invasion is worth extinction." Mira packaged the message with all the classified files, wrapped it in layers of encryption that would make it look like intelligence data intercepted by Drevok scouts, and prepared it for upload. On the morning of the 20th day in Drevok territory, they made their approach. Dane flew the ship like it was part of his own body, weaving through patrol routes and sensor grids with insane precision. Yuna sat in the co-pilot seat, her hands gripping the armrest so hard her knuckles turned white. 250 kilometers, Mira called out. 200, 150. Alarms started screaming. They had been detected. Upload now? Yuna shouted. Mira's fingers flew. Uploading. Come on, come on. 70%. 80%. Drevok ships began to turn toward them. Weapons charging. 95%. Upload complete. Get us out of here. Yuna yelled. Dane spun the ship and pushed the engines to maximum. They ran at full speed, alarms blaring. Drevok ships in pursuit. Energy weapons lit up the space around them. One shot clipped their shields and the whole ship shuddered. Jump coordinates locked, Dane said through gritted teeth. 3 seconds to jump window 2, 1. Space twisted. The stars stretched into lines, and they were gone, leaving the Drevok fleet behind. They emerged in empty space 3 systems away. Everyone sat in stunned silence for a moment, hearts pounding, unable to believe they had survived. It's done, Mira said quietly. The package is in their system. Their intelligence division will find it within hours. Now they waited. They sat in empty space, monitoring Drevok communications, watching to see what would happen. Yuna barely slept. She kept imagining the Drevok commanders opening those files, watching her message, seeing the truth about what humanity had done. 40 hours after the upload, they intercepted the first reactions. Encrypted military communications, high-priority channels, emergency meetings being called. Mira worked to decrypt them, and what she found made her hands shake. They're debating, she said. The Drevok High Command is arguing about whether it's real. Some say it's coalition propaganda. Others say the evidence is too detailed to be fake. Jiho leaned over her shoulder. What are they saying about the message? They keep playing it. Over and over. Your message, Yuna. They're analyzing every word, trying to determine if you're being truthful. More hours passed. The team took turns monitoring the communications while others slept or ate or simply stared out at the stars. On the 3rd day, something changed. The Drevok fleet began to move. Are they advancing? Vorath asked, moving to the tactical display. No, Tessic said, studying the patterns. They are pulling back. Ships returning to defensive positions. The communications traffic increased to a frenzy. Mira worked to decrypt the latest messages, and when she succeeded, she let out a long breath. They're standing down, she said. The Drevok High Command has ordered a halt to offensive operations. They're requesting diplomatic contact with the Coalition Council. Yuna felt her legs give out. She sat down hard, unable to believe it. It worked? It worked, Jiho confirmed, reading over Mira's shoulder. They specifically mention the human military records. They say they need to verify the information before proceeding. They want to negotiate, Dane whooped with joy. Even Vorath allowed himself a small smile. Tessic's mandibles clicked rapidly, and what Yuna had learned was Chilik's laughter. But Yuna felt no celebration. She thought about the message she had sent, about the files she had revealed. Somewhere in Drevok space, military commanders were watching footage of Earth destroying worlds, reading about species being eradicated, learning that humans practiced total war as a philosophy rather than a tactic. We stopped a war, she said quietly, but we did it by making them afraid. We weaponized fear. Sometimes fear is the right weapon, Vorath said, surprising her. Better they fear us enough to talk than force us to show them why they should be afraid. The journey back to Coalition space took 12 days. Word had reached the Council before they arrived. By the time they docked at Station Krell 7, the entire galaxy knew that the Drevok had requested peace negotiations and that a team from the Academy had somehow convinced them to stand down. Velkon met them at the docking bay. He looked older than Yuna remembered, the weight of recent events showing in his posture. You did it, he said simply. The Council is already in talks with the Drevok. There will be peace. For now, Yuna said, until they decide to test us again. Until someone else decides that humans are bluffing. Perhaps, Velkon agreed. But you bought us time, and you showed that there are alternatives to Earth unleashing its full military capability. Information can be as powerful as asteroids. The team was honored at a ceremony. They received medals and commendations. Yuna stood on the same platform where the scanner had revealed humanity's terrible secrets, and this time the assembly applauded instead of laughing. But the applause felt hollow. She saw the way people looked at her now, not with respect but with fear. She was no longer Cadet Park, the weak human who could not pass combat training. She was Cadet Park, representative of the species that destroyed worlds. That night, she sat in the observation deck with Jiho. They looked out at the stars in silence for a long time. Did we do the right thing? Yuna asked. Jiho considered the question. We stopped a war. Billions of lives were saved. How could that not be right? But we did it by threatening extinction, by making them believe that humans would commit genocide if pushed hard enough. What if they're right to believe that? What if we would? I don't know, Jiho admitted. I hope we never have to find out. Yuna thought about the files she had seen, the history she had learned. She thought about Earth's decision to suppress that history, to try to become something better. But she also thought about how easily that history could be repeated if the galaxy pushed hard enough. I'm not going back to combat training, she said suddenly. I'm going to request transfer to Diplomatic Corps. Someone needs to make sure that message I sent stays a deterrent, not a prediction. Jiho smiled. I think that's a good choice. Months passed. Yuna graduated from the academy not as a soldier but as a diplomat. She took a position with the Coalition's Peace Division, working to strengthen relationships between species, to prevent conflicts before they required military solutions. The Drevuk negotiations resulted in a lasting treaty. Other species that had considered challenging the Coalition reconsidered. Humanity's military history remained classified officially, but everyone knew now. The secret was out. One day, Yuna found herself back at the memorial for the 3 destroyed outpost stations. She stood before the wall of names. 12,000 people who had died before her mission prevented more deaths. Vorath found her there. The massive Kryn warrior stood beside her in silence for a moment before speaking. I wanted to apologize, he said, for how I treated you, for mocking you. You were not wrong, Yuna said. I am weak. Physically, I mean. But strength is not just physical, Vorath said. I have thought much about this. My people respect warriors, we honor combat prowess. But what you did, stopping a war without fighting, that requires a different kind of strength. One that I did not understand before. Yuna looked up at him. Do you still fear humans? Vorath considered the question. Yes, but I also respect them. Both can be true. After he left, Yuna remained at the memorial. She placed her hand against the wall of names and made a silent promise. She would work every day to make sure humanity never had to use its terrible capabilities again. She would prove that Earth could be more than its violent past. But she also understood something that she had not before. Peace was not weakness. Choosing not to destroy was not the same as being unable to destroy. And sometimes the greatest strength was showing restraint when you had the power to end everything. The scanner had revealed the truth. Human record shows worlds destroyed, not soldiers. But Yuna would work to create a new truth. A truth where humans were known not for the worlds they destroyed, but for the worlds they saved. As she walked away from the memorial, she passed a group of new cadets on their first day at the academy. They looked young and scared and hopeful, just like she had been. One of them was human, a young man who looked even smaller and weaker than Yuna. She stopped and introduced herself. Told him it would be hard. Told him he would struggle. But also told him that being human meant more than physical strength. It meant choosing what kind of species you wanted to be. The young cadet listened with wide eyes, and Yuna saw in his face the same uncertainty she had felt, but also the same determination. She left him with one final thought. They will fear you because of what humans have done, but you can teach them to respect you because of what humans choose not to do. And as she walked through the halls of Station Krell 7, Yuna Park, diplomat and former cadet, carried with her both the burden of her species' terrible history and the hope of a better future. The scanner had shown the galaxy what humanity was capable of destroying. Now it was up to her generation to show what humanity was capable of building.